Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a man is cleared of helping his flatmate murder a retired teacher. Peter Coshan was killed by Paul McNaughton. Paul Black was convicted of assisting him in concealing the crime. In other news, the head of the transfusion service apologises for mistakes that led to thousands being infected with contaminated blood in the 70s and 80s.
We take responsibility. We apologise to the people affected, and we will take all possible steps to make sure that similar things cannot happen again.
A long-awaited report into the scandal is expected to be published on Monday. Also on tonight's programme, we meet Scotland's other football team who are off to the Euros.
Coming up in the sport, as we approach the final weekend of the Scottish Premiership season, Philippe Clement admits a big rebuild is required at Rangers, which includes one loan deal the manager hopes to make permanent.
Rebus. There's rules and there's laws, right?
Actor Richard Rankin tells us about his nerves over taking on the role of Edinburgh's most famous fictional detective in a new BBC series. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Friday's programme. A 65-year-old man has been cleared of murdering retired schoolteacher Peter Coshan after the jury found the case against him not proven. But Paul Black was found guilty of the charge of attempting to defeat the ends of justice by hiding Dr Coshan's body in undergrowth in Northumberland after he was murdered in a flat in Leith. Last year, Black's flatmate Paul McNaughton pled guilty to Peter Coshan's murder. Both men will be sentenced next month. Aileen Clark was at the High Court in Edinburgh.
Peter Coshan was a well-liked and well-respected former science teacher. After more than 30 years teaching at Fettes Private School in the capital, he retired in 2005. In August 2022, now in the grip of Parkinson's disease, he was lured from his Stockbridge flat to a flat in Leith, where 29-year-old Paul McNaughton was waiting for him. McNaughton had contacted him on a gay dating app, pretending to be a stranger in town. Mr Coshan had been paying McNaughton for sexual services for a year before that night, and McNaughton was already helping himself to money from his bank account. McNaughton shared this flat with 65-year-old Paul Black, and when Mr Coshan arrived around midnight, McNaughton has already admitted that he murdered him. Today, a jury found the murder charge against Paul Black not proven.
Peter Coshan's family issued a statement saying how grateful they are for the support they've had from their friends and from Peter's. They say that support is in stark contrast to the worst of human nature, which was displayed by the individual who took Peter's life. They say we remain horrified that anyone could have treated a vulnerable 75-year-old in such a despicable manner. Our life will never be the same, they say, and we will always ask the question, what if?
Paul Black was convicted today of attempting to defeat the ends of justice for his part in transporting and hiding Mr Coshan's body. It was found 3 weeks after his murder, hidden in the undergrowth by the side of a country road in Northumberland, more than 70 miles away. Police had tracked the Vauxhall Vectra that Black and McNaughton had bought, with money stolen from their victim. During his decades teaching biology at Fettes, Dr Coshan inspired many pupils, including Barbara Graham.
Because of him, I then went on to have a career in applied medical research, and it was due to being inspired by him. He was a fun person to have to know socially. He had a great sense of humour, very dry, funny man, but very friendly and polite to everyone.
When the shock of this dreadful murder subsides, how would she hope he will be remembered?
We called him Doc Cosh. With love and gratitude for his teaching and for his kindness.
McNaughton and Black will be back in court to be sentenced next month. McNaughton to life, and Black has also been told by the judge to expect a significant period in jail. Aileen Clark, Reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
The director of the Scottish National Blood Transfusion Service has apologised for mistakes that led to thousands of Scots being infected with contaminated blood in the 1970s and 80s. Professor Mark Turner said the organisation could and should have done better in screening blood donors and testing donations for hepatitis C. Campaigners have expressed anger and frustration over the scandal. Monday sees the publication of the final report from a 6-year public inquiry into what's been branded the biggest treatment disaster in NHS history. Our health correspondent Lisa Summers reports.
In these laboratories near Edinburgh, hundreds of thousands of donations of life-saving blood are processed each year, carefully screened and tested before being distributed to hospitals across Scotland. But almost half a century ago, blood collection in Scotland went horribly wrong, infecting thousands of patients with HIV or hepatitis C. In the 1970s and 80s, almost half of the country's blood supplies were from Scottish donors, and those running the service admit serious mistakes were made.
It was very clearly a very tragic set of circumstances, and for those failings we take responsibility. We apologise to the people affected, and we will take all possible steps to make sure that similar things cannot happen again.
A campaigner for decades, one of those given contaminated blood is Bill Wright. In 1986 he was infected with hepatitis C. By this time England was already testing for the virus.
I have gone through very angry periods, but I've learned over the years it's been incredibly damaging. Anger, frustration, confusion.
He believes this apology is a genuine one and will hopefully help people move on.
When we read this, we were raging too, OK?
Campaigners like Bill had been disappointed before when Scotland's Penrose inquiry into the scandal made only one recommendation to improve screening.
People were screaming whitewash, they were shouting, they were angry. They went outside and burned it. But it did lead to better things in Scotland. I mean, we then developed a better support scheme than had existed in the rest of the UK.
5 years ago, Scottish witnesses were amongst the first to give evidence to the UK inquiry. Bill has higher hopes for its outcome.
This inquiry is in many ways more important, and it's been conducted in a very different way. It's been much more valuable in that respect.
It's been a long journey for Bill, living with the consequences of hepatitis C. Just a few months ago, he discovered he now has liver cancer and is waiting for a transplant.
One of the things that I earnestly want for everyone involved in all of this is that they are able to find a place of peace, and they can feel calm, they can look forward, and that they no longer feel that they've been cheated.
What happened in Scotland's blood donation service is just one question of many that this wide-ranging inquiry will seek to answer when the final report is published on Monday. Lisa Summers reporting Scotland.
Families of people killed in the RAF Chinook crash in the Mull of Kintyre say they've been failed by the Ministry of Defence, who haven't organised a 30th anniversary memorial. 4 crew and 25 passengers were killed when the helicopter went down in foggy conditions in June 1994. 2 pilots accused of negligence over the disaster were exonerated 17 years later. Campaigners feel unanswered questions remain, and there should be a bigger memorial to mark the loss of life. The MOD says the crash was a tragic accident and it does not fund new memorials.
I cannot bear to see injustice. People have been fighting so long, and this, to me, surely at 30 years, it would have been a good time for them to say, well, let's do a really nice memorial service on the Mull of Kintyre or somewhere suitable to do that. I just find that all of the families have been suffering so much.
The First Minister set out his pro-business credentials today as he promised more concrete action from government and fewer strategy documents in an effort to attract investment to Scotland. John Swinney also took aim at the UK economic approach, but opposition parties criticised the Scottish Government for having another reset of business policy. Here's our political correspondent David Wallace-Lockhart.
John Swinney wants to show that he means business. For him, that means being pro-business.
There is no conflict in my mind or in the priorities of my government between eradicating child poverty and boosting economic growth. I will demand from my government more concrete actions and fewer strategy documents.
He pledged support for tech, entrepreneurs to streamline the planning process, but he thinks Scotland needs more of another ingredient: people.
Currently, the United Kingdom is very, 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 very hostile to migration. And I think that's an economic mistake. I think it's total folly.
This was an unashamedly pro-business speech from the First Minister at this finance campus in Glasgow. It seems to have landed well with business and with trade unions, but both those groups want to see his words translated into concrete action.
Get business round that table and be clear in terms of what it is we are bringing to the table and show us the respect that we deserve.
I think that the speech was encouraging. It's good to hear that we're looking for a move from strategy documents to some real actions. I think that's what we need to see from Scottish Government.
Another city, another speech. When he wasn't attacking Labour, the Chancellor was hinting at tax or national insurance cuts.
If we can afford to go further, responsibly, to reduce the double tax on work this autumn, that is what I will do. Because over time, we make no apology for wanting to keep cutting the double tax on work.
Labour say the Conservatives have no plan, and they don't think the SNP are doing any better.
The SNP have now hit the reset button so many times. I think everyone's started to think that the machine is broken. 17 years into government, it's not credible for John Swinney to suddenly have discovered economic growth.
But that's what the First Minister wants to deliver. Soon, he'll have to spell out how.
Well, let's get the thoughts of David now. David, you were there at that speech to business leaders today. Why do you think the First Minister felt he had to do it?
Well, it was more or less a reset there. And John Swinney was careful not to overtly criticise Scottish Government's past, partly because he was a key player in many of those governments. But that line that he wants more concrete action and fewer strategy documents does signal that he thinks things need to change. And the relationship between government and business has been strained in recent years. Policies like the deposit return scheme that the Greens were heavily involved in did put a strain on those relationships. So this speech today was a reset. John Swinney seemed to get quite a positive reaction from both business people there and trade unions. That's quite a difficult balance to strike, but he seemed to do it. But rhetoric is one thing, policy is another. So lots of calls, for example, for the planning process to be made much easier for big infrastructure projects. That's something he's going to have to look at. I think we'll hear more from the First Minister about policies next week in Holyrood, potentially even him distancing himself from some of his predecessors' policies.
OK, well, we'll see. Thank you very much, David. To some of the day's other stories now. And a defence lawyer who was found to have repeatedly crossed the line while questioning a woman during a rape trial has been fined £2,000 and ordered to pay £1,000 in compensation. A Faculty of Advocates committee found Lorenzo Alonzi's behaviour amounted to unsatisfactory professional conduct in 6 of 11 complaints from rape survivor Ellie Wilson. It said Mr Alonzi did not appear to clearly and unequivocally accept any wrongdoing on his part or offer an unreserved apology. Both sides have the right to appeal. BBC News has attempted to contact Mr Alonzi for comments. Glasgow City Council says it's working with police and with football clubs ahead of the final day of the season tomorrow. Celtic will lift the Premiership trophy at Parkhead after they clinched the title on Wednesday night. Fans are expected to gather in the city to celebrate. Police Scotland says it's working on a proportionate plan to maintain public safety. And a fragment of rock described as a missing part of the Stone of Destiny is genuine beyond reasonable doubt, according to Historic Environment Scotland. The chip was gifted to the former First Minister Alex Salmond in 2008 and held in storage by the SNP. A decision on a future home for the fragment will be taken at a later date. Now, the countdown is on to a summer of football. There's less than a month to go until Steve Clarke's side take on Germany in the opening game of the Euros. But for one team, their European debut is much sooner. Scotland's national deaf football team is one of the oldest organisations of its kind in the world, and they've just arrived in Turkey to compete in the European Deaf Championships. Our reporter El Duffy caught up with the players ahead of the tournament.
Show them what you're capable of, all right? This is Scotland's national deaf team. They're one of the oldest in the world and they're getting ready for the chance of a lifetime.
To be able to play 11 aside. I mean, we really are, we're lost for words and lost for signs, that we are so excited. We cannot wait to be there competing against another 12 countries. But the best thing for us is we are competing against Wales, England, Germany and Greece in the first round.
We're at a friendly match in Glasgow's East End. We're chatting with the team through an interpreter, and for those on the pitch, communication is key.
When we're playing football, we have to use a lot of strategy and a lot of preparation. So we talk to the players and we make sure that we have communication, because as deaf players we can't shout to other players. If a hearing team had a ball, they can shout to the man to get on that ball, and then the pass would be done really quickly. So for us, we have to think about these things in advance and have a strategy for it. So visually, when that ball is placed there, we know who's going to go into that position.
It's taken them a lot of time to qualify for the Euros and a fundraising effort totalling £40,000. And tonight, they're ready to make that long-fought dream a reality.
Really, I'm so excited and so proud to represent Scotland and go to Turkey. Especially because at the same time we've got our Scottish teams in Germany. So we've got our Scottish deaf in Turkey and our Scottish hearing ones in Germany. I think the advantage we have is that we're Scottish, because we as Scottish people have passion for football like no one else. We are determined. And remember, this is our first time we've been able to compete in the 11-a-side, so we are just ready for it.
George McGowan there talking to our reporter Elle Duffy, and good luck to them. Well, let's get to night's sport now with Lewis, and staying with football, we still have a domestic season to tie up.
Exactly, yes. Some things are wrapped up, but there's still plenty to play for indeed, Lorna. Thanks very much. Yes, hello there. Well, after being beaten to the Premiership title by Celtic, Philippe Clement admits that Rangers need a big rebuild, but the manager believes that the will is there in the club to bring about the necessary changes. Several out-of-contract players are expected to leave at the end of the season, but the Belgian seems keen to make Loni Abdalassima's move from Brighton a permanent one. The Senegal striker has scored 16 times despite an injury-interrupted campaign.
We were really happy what he showed. We see in him as somebody with potential to grow. He's very happy in this building, but there is a club that is his owner, so you need to find an agreement. So we will see what's going to happen there. It depends what their demands are and what we can pay. So it's always like that.
Hearts head coach Stephen Naismith says a place in the Scotland squad for the Euros would cap off a brilliant season for his striker, Lawrence Shankland. The Jambos captain bagged his 30th goal of the season in style on Wednesday night. This late volley here savaging a draw against St Mirren. His manager feels that he can end the campaign on a high with a home clash against Rangers tomorrow before the all-important trip to Germany with Scotland.
You won't realise for years to go, in the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the real understanding of how good an achievement it is for a player outside the Old Firm. Want to pick up all the awards, 30 goals. He can finish off a brilliant campaign tomorrow with the knowledge of how well it's went, but also with the drive to get in the Euro. First of all, I think he'll make the Euro squad, but to go and make an impact in a major tournament for Scotland would cap off a fantastic season for him.
Well, it's all wrapped up at the top end of the table. It's all still to play for two teams down the bottom. So will it be St Johnstone and Craig Levein celebrating come Sunday, or Ross County and Don Cowie? This is how it stands in the battle to avoid finishing 11th and secure the automatic safety of 10th. 2 points difference there between the two teams, with County at home to Aberdeen and Saints travelling to Motherwell on Sunday, knowing they need a win to have any chance of avoiding the playoffs. And even then, it may not be enough.
We need to rely on our creative players creating chances for the guys up front. And it's quite simple that there's not many permutations here. It's a win or we're in the playoffs.
I'm sure St Johnstone would like to be in our position. And like I've said over the last couple of weeks, we've earned the right to be in this position. We've worked extremely hard in the last 3 months to get to this point. We now have one game left, and it's up to us to go and attack that game.
Well, that playoff will be against one of these two teams, either Raith Rovers or Partick Thistle, who meet tonight in the second leg of their semi-final tie. Jonathan Sutherland is at Starks Park for us this evening.
I can hardly believe this is our final Friday night live championship/premiership playoff match of the season, as Raith Rovers and Partick Thistle vie for a place in the final to take on either St Johnstone or Ross County. Here in Kirkcaldy tonight, Raith Rovers very much favourites. They're 2-1 up from the first leg in Glasgow. They also finished 14 points clear of Partick Thistle in the championship table, and in 5 matches between the sides so far this season, Raith Rovers are unbeaten. So what gives Partick Thistle a chance this evening? Well, they are a very good side, plus they have captain Brian Graham up front. He is the championship player of the season. He's got 26 goals in all competitions. He's 36 years young, and like the proverbial fine bottle of wine, he's maturing well. So, a dramatic evening undoubtedly here in the Kirkcaldy sunshine. Join us for Sports Scene, 7:30 on the BBC Scotland channel.
It's also the final weekend of the SWPL season, with Celtic and Rangers battling it out for the title. Here's how it looks at the top of the table there. Celtic leading, but only by goal difference. That's the thing separating the teams there. That means that a win for Alina Sadiku's team against Hibernian will almost certainly hand them the title. But if they slip up, Joe Potter's Rangers side will be ready to pounce. They're in action against Partick Thistle. Before I go as well, Laura, a big night for Edinburgh Rugby at a sold-out Hive Stadium. They play Munster, hoping to move a step closer to the playoffs there.
Good stuff, and we are staying with something very Edinburgh at the moment. Thank you, Lewis. Now, John Rebus is to Scottish crime drama what James Bond is to spy thrillers, and the much-loved detective is back on the small screen. The new BBC reboot of the famous Ian Rankin novels reimagines Rebus as a younger man, played this time by namesake Richard Rankin. David Farrell spoke to them both.
Rebus, there's rules and there's laws, right? The law is whatever society says it is at any given point.
It's been over 15 years since Rebus was last on our screens, and in this reboot of the show, it's more than just a crime drama, according to its author, Ian Rankin.
It's proper grown-up drama. We've got Rebus back as being a young man, which means he is visceral, he is macho, he can get in fights without fear of losing. So it's looking at how far people will go to support their family and the rules they think they might have to bend or break to support their family.
He may well be past the point of no return. You're not. Whiskey man, aren't you?
Not really.
The iconic role of Rebus has been brought to life previously by John Hannah and Ken Stott, and now it's over to Outlander's Richard Rankin to lead the charge. A bucket list role he could never have imagined.
It's incredible, it's amazing, and now that, since I've had the opportunity, it was one that I was immediately, very aware that I was taking on. I think I'd just never, ever, even on the phone call, entertained the idea of playing the character, even, as it's been broached. So since that, once I actually got my head round the idea of not only being able to play this role, but I think, then I started to realise that I'm taking on a bit of a mantle with this character.
Talking of names, what should I call you?
Richard, can you remember the moment that you got some feedback from Ian on your portrayal of Rebus?
One of the things I was very aware of while we were shooting, and I think I asked the question a lot, and I was like, has Ian seen the first couple of episodes? And then they said, no, that he's going to wait. I was very sort of aware that I hadn't had word from the big man yet, and when it came, it was gracious and pleasant.
I should go to the hospital, speak to Jimmy McJagger.
For Rebus fans, it's been a long wait to have one of Scotland's most famous detectives back on screen. But Edinburgh also has a starring role.
It's down to the City of Edinburgh, which again almost steals the show, because the City of Edinburgh is still an underutilised set, I would say, for great drama. And whenever I see an establishing shot of the Edinburgh streets, I just get a wee buzz.
The rules are the rules.
David Farrell, reporting Scotland.
OK, let's take a look at the weather now with Gillian, and you are finishing the week on a high with that one.
Yes, isn't that a beauty, Laura? There was lots of sunshine around today. Plenty more fine weather to come over the weekend, but mixed fortunes in terms of sunshine, the chance of a shower or two as well. Good evening to you. It was a day of warm sunshine for many of us once again. We got just shy of 24 Celsius at Altenhara in the Northwest Highlands, and generally it was warmest in the west. You can see here temperatures quite widely reaching the low 20s, but a few cooler spots on the east coast thanks to a breeze coming in off the North Sea. And over the weekend, high pressure still with us, the warm air still with us, so we're largely dry, but we could see some issues with mist and low cloud, as we will tonight actually. That will filter in off the North Sea through the Central Belt in towards the Moray Firth, affecting the Western and the Northern Isles as well as the North Highlands. Temperature wise, it is mild, holding up between 7 and 10 Celsius for most of us. So tomorrow, where you start the day with that mist and low cloud, it will tend to thin and break, lifting lots of sunshine coming through tomorrow, and it will be predominantly dry. But as we head into the afternoon, there will be the risk of a few potentially heavy showers cropping up. So if we take a closer look around 3 o'clock, lots of sunshine, as you can see, for central and southern Scotland, lifting those temperatures again to 21, 22 Celsius. The southwest at risk of seeing some of those showers. Again, they could be heavy, potentially thundery, and a shower risk too, stretching from central Scotland up into the Highlands and inland Aberdeenshire. Some of that mist and low cloud stubborn to clear the North Highlands as well as the Northern Isles, so a bit of a cooler feel here. Across the hills tomorrow, we'll start with that mist and low cloud. It will lift to leave sunshine, but once again, bear in mind there will be the risk of a few of those potentially heavy and thundery showers. Temperatures across the tops reaching 14 or 15 Celsius. And of course, the sunshine very strong at this time of year, so beware of sunburn and dehydration if you are heading out. Now, some of those showers lasting into tomorrow evening, still a few heavy, potentially thundery ones. But by the time we get into Sunday, it's predominantly dry once again. We'll start with some mist and low cloud, but it will lift, it will thin and break. We'll see some sunshine coming through. I think generally on Sunday, a bit more in the way of cloud, especially across northern Scotland, and that could produce just 1 or 2 showers. Temperature-wise, slightly down on where they have been. We'll still see 20 Celsius or so in the best of the sunshine. Still a cooler feel towards some of those North Sea coasts. And as we head into the start of next week, high pressure is sticking with us. So Monday is predominantly dry. We'll see some quite large areas of cloud, but still some decent bright and sunny spells on offer. That's the forecast. Laura.
I think we'll take that. Thank you, Gillian. Now, tonight's main news again. A 65-year-old man has been cleared of murdering retired school teacher Peter Coshan after the jury found the case against him not proven. And that is Reporting Scotland. Anne McAlpine will have your late news around 10:30 tonight. Until then, from everyone on the team, enjoy your evening. Good night.